gates, good. Great. Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome to another vlog at Noth Farm. So today we are out in the market garden and we're breaking new ground. We're working on the new plot, our extension of the market garden. We've been talking about this in previous vlogs, and yesterday we came out and started work on the new plot. And today we're getting stuck in, so Rosa and I have been removing some of the worst weeds that we've got on the plot. It's a little bit of a strange area because we had a digger coming in, as Rosa explained in a previous vlog. We had a digger coming in to flatten a large berm of rubble and kind of sandy soil that was here. So half of the area is already basically exposed soil. And the other half, it has still got grass on it, and we had the geese on there for the last week or so trying to reduce the grass for us to make the job of ploughing a bit easier. But there's quite a few tenacious weeds in this area. We're dealing with something called leopard's bane, which is quite a pretty ornamental plant that seems to get planted in gardens, but on this property it's gone wild. I think it's a daisy. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not much of a flower person. It spreads very easily, so that's what Rosa's digging up here and trying to get rid of, because obviously I'm going to come in with our rotary plough. We're going to be chopping up the soil just to try and speed up the development of these beds and deal with any compaction left over from that digger coming in. And I don't want to really chop up all the roots of these invasive species and spread them around the garden. We've got these big clumps of grass as well, which we're getting rid of, so we've been digging those out by hand. Yeah, it's a bit of a blend of approaches we're using to create this new plot, bring this field into production. Half person power and half mechanical power, bringing in our BCS. So after we've dug out these weeds, we're going to try and turn the soil over and then see how we go with that. It's going to be a long process. There are a lot of massive rocks in this field, so that's going to slow down my progress. So we've also got my mum and Andy back out again, family team, giving it all their hard work for us, which is fantastic. They're carrying on the job of putting up the perimeter fence around the market garden. The other day they were working on the southern boundary around this new plot, and now we're replacing pretty much all the fencing around the market garden. So they're making their way up the east side of the market garden, around the north, where we've got one of our newest forest garden tree roses up there. Those trees have been looking after themselves, slightly in a dangerous area of possible deer browsing because they're out with the market garden. They're going to be in the market garden now, so that's great. We can remove the tree tubes off of them. that's a workout. Even with petrol power, this is quite a tough job. Our original plan for this plot had been to import a large amount of compost and go no dig with this section, but yeah, of course, because of coronavirus we weren't able to buy any compost. We wanted to go for a full no dig approach to the entire market garden, needing around 60 tons of compost. Before coronavirus we were struggling anyway to source it. Seems to be quite a lack of large amounts of municipal compost to be able to buy. And then when we finally did track down a source, we're not allowed to go and pick it up because of the restrictions that are in place. We're just having to go on with digging, and hopefully we can get back to our plan of transitioning to no dig next year. I mean, without this BCS we would literally be digging these beds by hand, and the first 10 beds of the market garden were dug by hand. That took me and 2 volunteers about a week to do 10 15-meter beds, and right now I'm doing 5 30-meter beds. It's very compacted ground, but there should be quite a lot of fertility in here. A few years ago we had the cows grazing on here, then the goats and hens, and then the geese, so we're not worried about it needing to add too much extra fertility. Anyway, just having a bit of a break, have a drink, and we'll crack on. Shouting. So it's going much better ploughing east to west right now. I'm getting through it pretty quickly now. That makes sense really. I started ploughing this yesterday and I went east to west. It was really difficult, but maybe that was just me on an off day. Yeah, just got a little patch of green left to do, and then it's seriously end of daytime. Rosa is behind me, weeding the beds a little bit and preparing to put some fabric down for some kale. Talking of fabric, we're going to have to use landscape fabric here. Can you imagine the amount of weeds that are going to come up after this disturbance? It's where a lot of the fertility is going to come from. We're cutting up a lot of grass and nettles and burying it a bit lower, but we're going to get a lot of weeds. This is a very weedy patch, being quite an abandoned little field. So we're going to be putting landscape fabric on here, but I'll probably discuss that another time. Anyway, better get back to the job. That was quite a downpour that we had just at the end of our jobs. Rosa was just getting that fabric down and I managed to plough the last section of the new plot. Now I had a bit of hail and rain. It's just easing off now, but we've decided to call it the end of the day. Rosa's bringing the goats down from the north field. I'm sure they won't like it in this weather, so she's getting them into their dry and warm byre. Good progress with the new plot. The next stage, obviously, we've got to try and form beds. I'm not sure if it's quite ready yet to do that. There's no way I'd be able to get a bed prep rake or anything through that just now. I'm gonna have to call it a day, and we're gonna have to carry on tomorrow.
See you later.
Good morning everyone, back out in the market garden carrying on. So Rosa's just behind me there putting down a landscape fabric border come walkway. Today we're hoping to get in and start laying down some landscape fabric to be able to plant through. Without the landscape fabric we'd be doing a lot of hand weeding, digging out rhizomes etc. from the soil. We've got the landscape fabric because we've used it in previous years. It's already got holes pre-burnt into it to be able to plant into at the spacings for cabbages, which is what we're putting in this new plot. So we'll be putting that down, and that's really going to help us in the long term fighting against the weeds. Our method today, instead of trying to rake these beds, which might be quite hard with all the organic matter in it, we're going to use the landscape fabric to mark out the plots, pin that down, and we'll just kind of walk up and down on the path where we want the pathways to establish that, rather than trying to make raised beds with the rotary plough like we've done in the rest of the market garden. It's great to finally have this plot almost ready, because the young cabbages are definitely at the stage where they need planted out. And apart from that, we've got the rest of this plot to work on. Rosa's been very busy putting down landscape fabric. Again, this is another brassica plot. This plot used to be 2 plots of 15-meter beds, and this year we've turned it into 1 plot of 30-meter beds. We're going to be putting these blue hoops up that you see behind me. This is to support the mesh that we cover the beds with to protect the brassica against the cabbage root fly. We had some awful problems with cabbage root fly a few years ago, and have learned that the best way to deal with that is by putting a very fine mesh on the beds. Depending on how we go with the new plot, we might be able to get working on this plot, putting the blue hoops on, then of course we've got to plant, and then we'll get the mesh on. But really our priority is this new plot, because the cabbages really need planted out. So hopefully very soon this will look a little bit different.
started doing these borders around our plots a couple of years ago. We find they make like a really good frame for each plot. It kind of marks out exactly where the beds should be, where they start, and where the kind of pathways end. We're always going to have at least grass and probably docks and things around the garden, so for us to really mark a boundary is very useful. It means it's much more obvious where we need to keep track of the weeds and things. They also make really great pathways, so at the moment this border here is going to be the only pathway between the edge of this bed and this is going to be a tree row, so this will be wood chip all the way to where these willows are here. That's one edge of this tree row and this will be the other edge. Sometimes we have grassy paths and they get mown, but especially if there's a very small grass path, say between the edge of a bed and the beginning of a tree row, it's really hard to maintain that because our scythe cutter bar is too big for that. So we often find that just using some landscape fabric can fix that problem. It changes depending on where the plots are in the garden. And we're quite excited because we're going to have a really nice big tree row here, which should be a nice way to break up all these plots. Going down to the new ones.
Okie dokie, so we're bringing out the cabbage brassica spacing landscape fabric that we've had all these years. Some of these sheets of fabric have seen 4 and this will be their 5th season. So we're bringing it out and we're going to take advantage of the fact that it's such a still day, no wind, and we're going to lay it all out and just see what we've got. Make sure it's all the right size, right spacing, right variety of crop, and then we'll start using the landscape fabric to actually identify where the beds are and the pathways are. Good start. It all takes quite a lot longer than you might imagine. It's really just trying to get these bits of fabric in line. Also because we don't normally work with this length of bed, so it means that it's quite hard perspective wise to really straighten things up, and also because the beds are quite lumpy and bumpy because this is all quite new ground. We've made some decisions about where we're putting the pathways and things. This is just the first 2 of the 4 beds pinned down now. We're also going to be putting some fabric across the pathways just because the cabbages are really a crop that we aren't constantly checking on. You know, they get protected with insect netting. Unless we're giving them a feed or something, or a water in specifically dry spells, we'll really leave them to it. So leaving the pathways to get very weedy, especially in a new bed that's full of tufts of grass and kind of dock roots and things, is just going to be a bit of a nightmare. So it's going to be a bit of a plastic fantastic plot. We often have this for our brassica plots, but we're really hoping to progress from that one day. So it's actually very hot and it's getting to the middle of the day, so I think we're going to go in for some shelter and get a bit of lunch, and then we will carry on with this very fun job afterwards. Right. the landscape fabric down, enough for the cabbages that we've got to plant out quite soon. The rest of this plot we're going to chuck a tarp on, just to keep the condition of the soil good if it rains, or also just to start the process of breaking down all the grass and roots and organic matter that we've got in this soil.
Rubble sacks, made of old feed sacks filled with rocks from the plot. They're for weighing down the tarps.
Right, that's us got the tarps on, nice and secure for the wind, and yeah, pretty good, looking great. Good achievement to have that done. 4 cabbage beds ready to plant, maybe tomorrow. The other one's just resting under the tarp until we've got the time to prep them. So we've got another hour or so of our day before we do our chores and knock off, and Rosa has decided to set us the challenge of putting these blue hoops in so that they can act as a support for the netting that we need to put on to protect the brassicas from the vicious attack of the cabbage root fly.
That planting tomorrow. We're getting there.
All right, that's a good point to finish, I think. Yeah. Really got plot 7, which is there, looking a lot more ready for getting planted.
Yeah.
Fabric down here, blue hoops in here, pathways. Hope you enjoyed that today. We're gonna obviously catch you very soon. We've got a lot more to show you and a lot more to do. Hope you're all well out there. Best wishes, catch you soon.
Bye.